Hello everyone, this is Ava from Soul GPS. Welcome. In today's episode, I wanted to answer a question that was left by one of my viewers on my YouTube channel, and I think it's a great question that deserves some pondering and some time. And I wanted to give you guys my idea of what I think about this. And the question was left on a video that dealt with trauma. And the question was basically, is trauma always a negative thing? And I thought about it for a while, and my intuitive hints were that no, it's not always a negative thing. That there are actually some really positive qualities to having things to work on. But then at the same time, there are some things that wouldn't give me peace, and specifically, I have a real problem with terrible things being done to children, to young victims who have no way of understanding what's happening to them, what's being done to them, no conscious choice in the matter. So I've thought about it for a bit, and looking at both sides, and I think that from a large scope of things, we have all been traumatized in one way or another just by the virtue of the world that we live in. And it is not a perfect world by any means. It has an order to it, but it's still pretty disintegrated. There's a lot of hate, there's a lot of pain, war, injustice, and all of that. I mean, it doesn't require too much to see all that. So living in this kind of reality, by default, there will be a time when we're going to encounter someone or something that will traumatize us. We'll either see something or something will be done directly to us, even if we were raised in a loving, positive environment. But I don't think that it is so much about what happens to us, but what we do about it. And there is no justice when it comes to, a child being molested, or, whether someone deserves this versus doesn't. I mean, we've come up with so many, philosophies and ways to explain it, such as, past lives and this and that. I mean, who knows? I'm pretty skeptical when it comes to those things because I just don't know. There's so many instances in which abusers use these kinds of spiritual beliefs in order to make people feel like they deserve mistreatment, like they deserve abuse. So, I'm on the fence about that stuff. I think we all deserve respect, and we have a lot of work to do to bring ourselves up, just the whole quality of life around the world, and bring fairness into the equation. So back to the question, is trauma a negative thing? I think it really depends on what we do with it. It can be a negative thing when it is left unattended, when the wounds are, still bleeding, when they're not being addressed, when it's basically not being talked about. Because giving voice to the pain, to the suffering, to the trauma is essentially what begins to heal it, since these are thought forms that have been deeply lodged into our body, and they need air, they need light, they need to be brought into conscious awareness. It's when they're kept in the dark, when they create a self-sabotaging loops, mechanisms, undermining dynamics that prevents us from moving forward in our life. And it's just in general, they're terrible energy drain. But there is a way to turn this whole thing around. And I believe that traumas can serve us as fantastic tools for allowing us to come to two very important steps in the self-actualization process. And self-actualization comes after, we have created a sense of comfort and safety for ourselves. And now we have developed the self-trust in order to go deep within and look at some of those things, right? Whether with the help of somebody else, which generally helps and tremendously speeds up the process, and the process, of course, it has to be continued and primarily attended to by the person healing their own trauma. So my thought is that we can take those traumas and turn them into treasures, and we can take our wounds and turn them into wisdom, and it will bring us to that level of meeting those two points of self-actualizations, which are self-knowledge or self-discovery, and self-love. Self-love, I would say, being kind of the pivotal point in our journey where we feel so good about ourselves. We don't have to be perfect. This is not about meeting some image of, okay, I got to be like this. And when I reach that state, I'm going to love myself unconditionally. It is completely turning this thing upside down. And it really leads through self-forgiveness. And realizing that the things that have happened to us was not our choice, was not due to our own making. Nobody would, I mean, unless somebody is a masochist, nobody draws these things to themselves. These are unconscious mechanisms that just self-replicate and create this kind of mirroring effect between the inner environment and the outer environment. So if we're feeling really bad about ourselves and we're carrying ourselves a certain way, other people are going to mistreat us or treat us like doormats, for instance. So this deals with self-respect. Here we're talking about self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, building confidence through a variety of activities that then give us feedback from the environment that what we're doing is good, it's positive, and it's helping us and it's helping other people. So it's creating resonance between our community and ourselves. So it's a pretty complicated, a multi-tiered process, but nothing, I would say, has the power, unless it's some kind of an intense inspiration that can be sustained over a long period of time. But I don't think that there's anything out there that has as much power than trauma does, or something that keeps on occurring that makes us fall into these negative patterns, causing pain, and pain then becomes a gateway or a catalyst, rather. It becomes a catalyst to awakening and stopping in our tracks and making us go, wow, wait a minute, why does this keep happening? What is going on? And usually there is this thought, right, that accompanies this, which is, what's wrong with me? And that thought, while it is essentially untrue, because there really isn't anything wrong with us, it's just that there are certain mechanisms and thought forms and patterns that we have taken on ourselves that are unconscious, that have been animating our life, that has given us the bad results. But underneath it, at the core, where there isn't anything wrong, especially if we are on the journey of self-discovery and wanting to grow and so on. So it's not that we're wrong, it's that something wrong has happened to us at some point in our lives, and now we have the opportunity to awaken, to look at it, to look at what happened, to go within, right? All the wise men always say, go within. Inside of you is the treasure of treasures. Know thyself, and you will know the ways of the universe and the world. One of the most famous quotes from the Temple of Delphi in Greece. So it becomes a catalyst for searching for answers. And something that tends to happen, it happened to me, it happened to people that I've worked with, happened to my friends. In order to have a transformational experience, you got to look at yourself deeply, and that's when you face all of those fears. Slay the dragons. It's a journey like no other, but it's a journey of truth, as opposed to living a life from this kind of I call it the lukewarm existence of accepting lies and settling, for something that isn't really in full resonance with you, and not really fighting for yourself. But when you do stop what you're doing and do make the choice to turn your attention within and begin to heal yourself and look at those traumas and look at what were their causes and what can you do in order to heal yourself, and so that you can become a more integrated whole human being that is capable of generating and manifesting the dreams that you've had since you were a child, now it's a game changer. Now you're starting to live from a very different place. And even though you may never come to the point when you are like the vase before it was broken, by bringing together all of the pieces and sealing them in a new configuration, you are going to have a much richer experience. So I don't necessarily think that, a person who's never experienced anything bad is going to necessarily have a happier life, because we create happiness and joy and self-actualize through contrast. Is oftentimes people find their clues not so much by knowing exactly what they want, but first by knowing what they don't want. And that is the key right there. So to wrap this up, do I think that trauma is a negative thing? No, but I don't think that it is okay to hurt, abuse, and traumatize people, whether they're children or adults. It's still, this is why I have this channel. I don't think that that's okay. But I also think that whatever happens to you, you can alchemize that. You can be the alchemist of your destiny and change those dynamics, turn them around, turn the lead into gold, and learn to harvest your lessons for the betterment of yourself and ultimately for the betterment of humanity, which is what a conscious life is all about. So that's my take on that question. Great question. Thank you so much for asking it. And and I will speak with you next time. Bye-bye.